November 2008, a dark airfield on Orcas Island, Washington. A hangar door slides open. No key, no code, just patience and a bent piece of metal. A silhouette steps inside. Tall, lanky, barefoot. He's 17 years old. He has never taken a flying lesson in his life. He climbs into a $150,000 Cessna, studies the instrument panel the way a man reads a map in a foreign country, and starts the engine. The propeller bites the cold night air. He taxis to the runway. He pulls back on the yoke. He doesn't just take off, he survives. For 2 years, Colton Harris Moore was a ghost, living in the woods, breaking into luxury homes, and stealing 5 aircrafts across 2 countries, leading the FBI on a chase that ended in a gunfight in the Caribbean. To the islands he haunted, he was a folk hero. To the federal government, he was a one-man crime wave. To aviation experts, he was something they still can't fully explain. This is the story of how a barefoot kid from a broken trailer on a foggy island made the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world look slow. To understand what Colton Harris Moore became, you have to understand what he was running from. Camano Island, Washington. Dense forest, gray water, beach houses locked up 9 months of the year. The kind of place that looks like peace from the outside and feels like isolation from within. Colton grew up here in a dilapidated trailer with a mother who struggled with severe alcoholism and a father who was simply gone. No structure, no stability, no one checking whether the kid had eaten. By age 7, the woods were safer than home. He'd slip out at night, raid neighbors' pantries, and sleep under trees. Not because he was reckless, because he was calculating. The forest didn't shout. The forest didn't drink. The forest was the only place where the rules were simple and the consequences were honest. He wasn't just surviving, he was studying. Every house he entered taught him something. How locks worked, how people organized their kitchens, which neighbors left windows unlatched, which dogs barked and which didn't. He was building a skill set that no school would have taught him and no system thought to redirect. By 15, years of juvenile detention was looming over him. A kid who had never been given a single stable thing being handed a cell instead. In 2008, a halfway house tried to hold him. He walked out the front door, crossed the parking lot, and disappeared into the evergreens. He was 16 years old. He had nothing, no money, no plan, no one waiting for him, and he was just getting started. The San Juan County Sheriff's Office had helicopters, K-9 units, and thermal imaging. Colton had the woods and 2 years of practice disappearing into them. The mismatch was not as lopsided as it sounds. He moved through the islands like water, Orcas, San Juan, Whidbey, leaving almost nothing behind. He'd break into a vacation home, cook a meal, watch a movie, recharge, and vanish before sunrise. He wasn't ransacking. He was inhabiting, taking what he needed and leaving the rest. The homes he chose were empty half the year. The owners were in Seattle or California or somewhere warmer. Nobody was watching. He learned which houses had alarm systems and which ones were relying on remoteness. He learned the ferry schedules, the patrol patterns, the gaps between check-ins. He studied the terrain the way a general studies a battlefield, not with maps, but with his feet, logging thousands of miles of trails and shoreline that no deputy had ever bothered to memorize. Then he started taunting them, a chalk outline of his bare feet on a victim's floor, a stolen credit card used to donate $100 to an animal shelter, a pizza ordered to a burglarized address, intercepted at the door, eaten in the tree line, while the delivery driver scratched his head on the porch. The sheriff's department released statements. The local press ran headlines. Colton read them in stolen houses on stolen laptops and kept moving. The online forums lit up. People were making Facebook fan pages, selling Barefoot Bandit t-shirts. He knew the terrain better than the people who'd lived there for decades. Every trail, every tidal flat, every gap in the fence line. The badges had jurisdiction. Colton had geography. But the islands were getting small. The search was getting organized. More agencies, more coordination, more eyes on the water. He had outgrown the ground, and he knew it. He needed a bigger map. And then he started looking at the sky. Here is the part that aviation experts still struggle to explain. Colton Harris Moore never sat in a cockpit with an instructor, never logged a single training hour. His flight education consisted of a stolen copy of a pilot's manual and thousands of hours on Microsoft Flight Simulator, a video game designed for entertainment, not certification. That was the entirety of his preparation before he climbed into a Cessna 182, worth more than most people's houses, and pointed it at the Cascade Mountains. Think about what that actually means. Professional pilots spend hundreds of hours in dual-control aircraft before they ever fly solo. They practice stalls, emergency procedures, crosswind landings, instrument failures. They build muscle memory over months under the supervision of someone who can grab the controls if it goes wrong. Colton had none of that. He had a joystick and a screen, and the particular kind of stubbornness that grows in kids who have never been allowed to fail safely. November 2008. He figures out the instrument panel the way he figured out everything else, by watching, reading, and refusing to panic. The engine catches. He taxis. He lifts off into the dark over Puget Sound. He flew 300 miles over mountains in the dark. He didn't know how to land, not in the way that matters when the ground is coming up and the airspeed is wrong and there's no instructor beside you talking you through the flare. So he did the only thing available to him. He picked a clearing and aimed for it. The Cessna hit hard, tore through brush, and came to a violent stop. The airframe was destroyed. Colton climbed out without a scratch and walked into the tree line. He did it again. A Cirrus SR-22 next, a high-performance aircraft that experienced pilots treat with genuine respect. He flew it through a thunderstorm. He walked away from that one too, then again and again. Each plane a little more sophisticated than the last. Each flight a little farther from home. The FBI entered the case. He was no longer a troubled teenager or a local embarrassment. He was a federal fugitive with a growing list of charges and a shrinking window before someone got killed. The manhunt expanded, resources multiplied, and Colton was already moving east, stealing cars, crossing state lines, leaving the Pacific Northwest behind entirely. He was heading toward the one place he believed he could truly disappear, the Bahamas. July 2010, Indiana. Colton Harris Moore is 19 years old, 2 years deep into the most audacious manhunt in recent FBI history, and he is not done yet. He steals his final plane, a Cessna 400, not a trainer, not a beginner's aircraft. The Cessna 400 is a complex high-performance machine that certified pilots approach with caution. It has a glass cockpit, a turbocharged engine, and a cruise speed of over 200 miles per hour. Colton has no license, no flight plan, and no instructor. He has a stolen manual and an instinct for survival that has kept him alive through thunderstorms, mountain ranges, and 2 crash landings that should have killed him. He points the nose south and doesn't look back. 1,000 miles across the flat American interior, over the sprawl of the Florida coastline, and then out over the open Atlantic. This is the moment that separates every other leg of his journey from this one. Over land, there is always a clearing, a field, a road, a place to put it down hard and walk away. Over the ocean, there is nothing. He is flying a stolen plane over open ocean with no radio contact, no filed route, no one on Earth who knows exactly where he is. The FBI knows the direction. The Coast Guard has been alerted, but the sky is wide and Colton has always been better at disappearing than people are at finding him. Great Abaco Island. He picks a spot near a mangrove swamp that looks flat enough from 2,000 feet. It is not flat enough. The Cessna hits hard, tears through the brush, and comes to a violent stop. The airframe is destroyed. Colton unbuckles, checks himself, climbs out, and disappears into the tree line. The plane is totaled. He doesn't have a scratch. Now he is in the Bahamas, and the Bahamas are nothing like the Pacific Northwest. There are no thousand-acre forests to vanish into. Great Abaco is flat, sparse, and small. The population is tight-knit in the way that island populations always are. A tall, sunburned American teenager with no shoes and no luggage is not invisible here. He is a rumor that spreads from one end of the island to the other. Locals call him the gringo. He steals food. He moves constantly. He is everywhere and nowhere, which is the only trick he has left in a place this small. The Bahamian authorities are not amused. Neither is the FBI. The net is tightening in a way it never quite managed to on the American islands. There are fewer exits here, fewer directions to run. The ocean that carried him here is now a wall on every side. He has one move left. July 11th, 2 a.m. He finds a 32-foot powerboat moored at a marina and opens the throttle toward open water. The Bahamian police are already waiting. They don't issue warnings. They open fire, shredding his engines. The boat drifts to a halt under a swarm of searchlights. Colton Harris Moore sits in the disabled boat, surrounded out of fuel, out of ocean, out of sky. The 2-year run, 5 stolen aircraft, a dozen stolen cars, burglaries across 6 states, 1,000 miles of open Atlantic is over. He pleaded guilty to dozens of federal and state charges. The judge didn't treat it as a prank. 6 years in federal prison. And then came the twist that felt almost scripted. A Hollywood studio paid over $1 million for the rights to his story. The folk hero, the Barefoot Bandit, the ghost of the San Juan Islands. His legend was worth money. And by the terms of his plea agreement, that money went directly to his victims as restitution. The people whose Cessnas he crashed, whose vacation homes he raided, whose boats he stole, they got paid. There is something almost poetic about that, and something deeply uncomfortable about it too. The story was worth more than anything he ever stole. And the story only existed because of what he did to those people in the first place. He is out now, older, quieter, a different man wearing the same name. But the questions don't go away. They never do with stories like this. Was Colton Harris Moore a genius? A kid with an extraordinary mind for survival, navigation, and improvisation, who was handed nothing? Or was he simply a reckless young man who got extraordinarily lucky? Lucky that the planes didn't kill him. Lucky that the storms didn't swallow him. Lucky that the ocean crossing didn't end in 60 feet of cold Atlantic water. Maybe both. Maybe that's the honest answer. And maybe the discomfort of holding both things at once is exactly the point. Because the system failed Colton Harris Moore. A boy the system gave nothing to figured out how to fly. And the only thing that finally stopped him was running out of ocean.